Good afternoon. Good afternoon. What is up? What is up? Whew. Is up? What is up? Give it one more minute. It is a nice Saturday afternoon at the Jersey Shore. The calm before the storm. Quite frankly, from a literal standpoint, if you're paying attention to the weather and you're down the Jersey Shore, because we're expecting a little blizzard coming late tomorrow, being Sunday, the 22nd into Monday. So we're on the lookout for that. But as of right now, I'm trying to enjoy the outside a little bit, and I'm here talking with y'all guys a little bit about to me. Talk a little bit about A.J. Brown. Because, some Eagles fans, going to talk about Tyreek Hill, and I'm going to get a little more in depth about it. And then I'm going to talk about, we talked about this a few weeks ago on the Sunday morning show, which, for the record, I'm not going to be on that tomorrow, though, but we'll talk about this subject a little more myself. But in the meantime, let's get right into it. So, a lot of people are wondering what's going on with A.J. Brown, the Philadelphia Eagles. Is A.J. Brown going to be back? Is he going to get traded? What's going on? Because there was a lot of discussion on throughout the season because of a few tweets A.J. Brown sent out. One came early in the season when the Eagles were still undefeated, but right before the Broncos game, I remember, it was after the Buccaneers game when we were 4-0 and we were getting ready to play the Broncos at home, and then the A.J. Brown tweet came up that, he said that thing about quietly withdrawing if you're not happy, and implying that he wasn't happy with where he currently stood with the Eagles. Then that kind of blew over. Then there was another tweet later in the season implying he wasn't happy with his lack of production in the offense and that he wasn't being utilized much, because he really wasn't being utilized. I mean, A.J. Brown's reception total was like 60-something, or like low 70s for the season, which make no sense. I mean, here's a guy who, granted, last season he didn't have, the 2024 season didn't have a great reception total, but he was injured and missed a few games, so that played a role in it there. But then, 2025, he pretty much played the whole season. He just wasn't being utilized as much by Kevin Patullo's offense. But now that Kevin Patullo is no longer in charge, you got to wonder if things are going to be different now, because we haven't really heard a lot about AJ lately. I mean, there's going to be people starting with the rumors, he's getting traded, bring him to the Patriots, or bring him to, that's the main one I heard so far, like the Patriots. Well, so far, there's absolutely no signs indicating that's actually going to happen. So far, I mean, we've also heard indications that A.J. Brown's on good terms with the team and he's staying, so there might just all be smoke and mirrors, though, too. It might have been, plus, it could have been easily more of a Kevin Patullo thing than it was necessarily a Philadelphia Eagles thing, because they weren't utilizing him in the offense at all under Patullo, even back with Brian Johnson in 2023, remember, Brian Johnson was not a good offensive coordinator, but even he utilized A.J. Brown properly in the offense. This was the first time since A.J. came to the Eagles that an offensive coordinator just did not know how to utilize him. Because you had 2022, the year first Super Bowl run, his first season there, he was a big impact player under Shane Steichen. And then the next year with Brian Johnson, the offensive play calling was worse, but he was utilized in the offense. That was his best individual season. Then 2024 under Kellen Moore, we focused mainly on the run with Saquon, and AJ did miss a few games as well, so those factor in his stat receptions being lower, but he was still an important piece of the offense. A.J. Brown had similar stats in 2025 to 2024, having played the entire season. Because remember, in 2024, he missed a few games So that factors into his stat totals as well. But then all of a sudden, 2025, just Kevin Patullo did not know how to utilize A.J. Brown at all. I mean, what was he? I really don't get what he was doing with him. I mean, they were trying. It was just the worst coordinated they paid. Forget the RPOs. It was just they went away from the RPOs, which worked to Jalen Hurts' strengths, and they were trying to run with Saquon in shotgun instead of under center, which is where he actually excelled during the Super Bowl run. It just made no sense. So I think it was more of a Kevin Patullo issue. Just the way he was running the offense just did a complete 180 from what worked the previous season and threw them off. And completely threw off their game, and they just didn't have the same efficiency. But sometimes that's what happens when you go away from a formula that's been working well. In this case, the RPOs, and everything just does a complete 180 and doesn't have the same efficiency as it did before. I mean, we've seen that happen. So I think that was more just a Kevin Patullo issue. But now that we get a new offensive coordinator, the opportunity to start fresh with A.J. Brown, get him back involved in the offense this season. But to be fair, we still got to wait and see how free agency plays out. And speaking of free agency, we know the Eagles on offense do have some key concerns to address, particularly the tight end room, because all their tight ends are free agents. Out of them, you re-sign Goddard. You can find a backup tight end either in the mid rounds of the draft or a low sign. You can just sign a tight end to a lower deal contract, maybe during the preseason or something along those lines. I mean, you got it with the tight end room. Just sign Dallas Goedert back. Grant Calcaterra, what is he doing for this team? Please. What value does he have besides, he knows the playbook? If he knows the playbook and no one else wants him, then he can just get re-signed in preseason in August for a minimal contract if he's that desperate for a team later, because Grant Calcaterra did nothing for the Eagles at all. I mean, the bottom line is with that, you got to re-sign Goddard. You just got to re-sign Goddard, bring him back, see what he can do. Because, Goddard, he doesn't have the greatest stats, but he still makes plays. He can still give those one or two key plays that can help in a game. Perfect example. Remember week 3, 2024 against the New Orleans Saints. We got the go-ahead touchdown late that put the game away, but it was that long stiff arm play by Goddard that got the Eagles set up in scoring territory to score a touchdown. The point is Goddard can still make his plays. So he still has value to the team. Now, as far as the offensive line goes, I would like to see the Eagles bring back Fred Johnson. Because we saw that Fred Johnson, a pretty underrated piece, and a pretty underrated offensive lineman. We saw particularly in the week 3 game against the Rams in the second half when Fred Johnson came in and he took over. He helped play a role in the Eagles' second half comeback. And he was a key piece in 2024 during the Super Bowl run. So that's someone else I would bring back. Reed Blankenship on defense. There's another guy I would try to bring back. So those would be mainly the 3 guys I would look to bring back the most. And I've heard some Eagles fans try to pitch for Romeo Doubs. Nah, I'm not the biggest Doubs fan. My biggest thing with him, too many drops. We saw it last season. We saw it in the Monday night game against the Packers at Lambeau Field when we played them. Doubs has a habit of dropping passes. So I'm not too high on that one there. So too many drops coming from Romeo Doubs. And here's another guy, Eagles fans. I already know it. Not all Eagles fans, but some of them are going to try to push for Tyreek Hill. I already know it because we've seen this saga before. Anytime a former Pro Bowler hits the free agency market or is rumored to be traded, Eagles fans are there's always going to be those portion of the fan base that pushing for him. OBJ back in 2021 before he signed with the Rams. Remember, as soon as the Browns cut him, it looked like there were Eagles fans like, let's get him. Some of them were. Ultimately, he went to the Rams. Remember Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger, before he went to the Saints. Some Eagles fans were pushing for him. Or Kareem Hunt, remember back in 2023. Right in during the preseason, some Eagles fans were buying into the rumors we were getting him. Didn't happen. So that's why I say, let's be realistic. And secondly, when it comes to Tyreek Hill, now he's a free agent. Let's be realistic. Tyreek Hill is a win now, you need a receiver to help add an extra spark to your offense type of guy. The team that makes the most sense for Tyreek Hill is the Buffalo Bills. A team that desperately needs that number one wide receiver, is trying to make that next push. What is up, Chad? What's up? Thanks for stopping by. And same as well, Little G, thanks for stopping by. But that to me makes the most sense. When you look at the Eagles situation, it does not make any sense for Tyreek Hill to come to Philly. You already got Jalen Hurts. A.J. Brown looks like he's still going to be there as of now. Devontae Smith. If you re-sign Goddard, there's 4 guys right there that all have chemistry together on the offense. Right there. You don't really need a Tyreek Hill in the room. And plus, Tyreek Hill is one of those guys you bring if you immediately are looking for that, like I said, the Buffalo Bills. And then Chad's pushing for Hill to come to the Steelers. Well, and that's going to be an interesting room. DK Metcalf and Tyreek Hill. It sounds promising, but egos in the locker room, man. I mean, with all due respect, Chad, we've seen that before sometimes with the Steelers. We know how egos run. And this isn't just the Steelers, but we've seen with them. You had Antonio Brown, then even Juju, and then George Pickens before he went to the Cowboys. No, that's an interesting room right there. Metcalf and Hill. I mean, personality-wise, though, I mean, that may be good in the short term on the field, but in the long term, morale-wise, that's a little tricky situation there if that were to happen. But that's the thing with Tyreek Hill, too. The off-the-field troubles come with it, too. And that's something that some teams are hesitant. While they love his skill level as a player, they don't want to deal with the drama that comes along with a Tyreek Hill. I think that's actually part of the reason why Kansas City let him walk in 2022. And everyone at the time thought Kansas City was going to take a big step backward without him, but they went on to make 3 straight Super Bowls, win the first 2 post Tyreek Hill, so they didn't necessarily need him. And then Miami, we saw, particularly later stage of his run, we started to see some of the drama creep in. That's part of the reason they let him go. Which is the reason I, as an Eagles fan, don't want Tyreek Hill in the locker room. I mean, last year we already had a little bit of drama with AJ and the offensive coordinator, the former offensive coordinator, Kevin Patullo. But, so, I mean, that wasn't like a big saga, but you're going from A.J. Brown to Tyreek Hill, a guy who's known for this drama, who has a much greater history of causing trouble and being a headache in the locker room than does A.J. Brown, a much bigger history. Why would you want to bring... I wouldn't want to bring Tyreek Hill in the locker room, especially when you know you already got a crew of guys in there who have chemistry, who work together well, even with some of the questionable play calling, who have proven it over the past 4 seasons. I mean, those guys have at least been good enough to at least get the Eagles to 11 wins or more. 2 of those seasons resulting in Super Bowl appearances, so, and a win in one of those 2 Super Bowls. So, and the same goes for the defense, too. You got the guys there, like the Jordan Dave, you got guys there that have been there a while, too, like Reed Blankenship. Darius Slay was there for 3 of those seasons. Zach Bonds joined the crew. I mean, you got a guy like a Tyreek Hill who can be a bit of a selfish player, to say the least. I don't know, that could mess up the locker room chemistry. I don't really like that idea. I mean, we don't necessarily need a Tyreek Hill, so why go for it? Unless you're a team that's that's in the mix and you want that number 1 receiver, then you go for it. But Eagles are not in that position. We don't need a guy like a Tyreek Hill. So I'll say no to that. And in general, because how Eagles fans are. There's always going to be some fans they're going to try to push for every big name player, former Pro Bowler that hits the free agency market. I'm not going to be one of them. Unless you're a team that needs that deep threat wide receiver, you don't need Tyreek Hill. Eagles don't need that, so we don't need him. I'll pass on Tyreek Hill. I mean, let another team take him, and whatever happens with them, happens with them. But, hey, it is still February. We still got exactly one more week of February, because next Saturday, the 28th, is the last day of the month. Then next Sunday, not tomorrow, but the day after that's the first day of March. So then once we got another week before the free agency talk really heats up. So we'll just leave it. So for now, just came on here to give my brief thoughts on that. But there's something else I wanted to talk about. This is about just sports in general, because we talked about it a few weeks ago on the Sunday morning show with me, Mitch, Fincy, Bo, Tim James from Steel by the Lake podcast. We talked about it. It was about sometimes you get those fans that are two-team fans in the same sport. That's a little bit odd. Like, for example, I know there's a guy in the network that's a Packers and a Kansas City fan, and he says he's a Packer fan because of Aaron Rodgers, which is a bit odd to be a fan of both teams. I mean, I don't see how you can be a fan of two. Like, I could see, here's an example. Like, I could see maybe someone being an Eagles fan for their NFL team, and then maybe for their NBA team, maybe being a Lakers fan or a Miami Heat fan. I can see that instead, like having, because I know you got, shout out to a Mr. Dugas who, he's an Eagles fan, but he has different teams for his sports. He's a Braves fan for baseball, Eagles fan football, and a Miami Heat fan basketball, which I get that because those are different sports. It's possible to be a fan of teams in different cities for different sports, like maybe be an NBA fan of a team out west and NFL fan of a team in the NFC, on the East Coast. I get that. That's possible, but not two in the same sport. Like that to me just, look, I can understand you could be a fan of a certain player from a different team and root for that player to do well, but you're not necessarily going to cheer the team. I mean, I've been there too. I've had players for other teams outside the Eagles. I was a fan of that player, but I was always going to cheer for the Eagles no matter what. Like, I was a fan of Larry Fitzgerald. I wished him to do well, but I was always an Eagles fan. I never cheered for the Cardinals. I always rooted for Larry Fitzgerald to have individual success, but I was never going to cheer for his team unless he did join the Eagles, which almost did happen one year, but that never saw the light of day. But the point is, never jumped on that bandwagon. Early in his career, I was a Cam Newton fan. I enjoyed his play and I wished him success, but I never jumped on the Panthers bandwagon. Or even in the NBA, early on when OKC Thunder had with Westbrook, with KD and Russ, I was a fan of them as players, but I never jumped on the Thunder bandwagon. As the years went along, when KD jumped to the Warriors, I wasn't really a fan of that move. And then as the years went along with Westbrook, he started hopping from team to team and becoming more of a nuisance. That's when I wasn't really, at that point, I wasn't really a fan of Westbrook anymore. But the point is, there's certain players I was fans of. So it's like, look, I do believe you can be a fan of a player that doesn't play for your favorite team. You can be a fan of their game, their style of play, but your team's ultimately your team no matter what. If you're an Eagles fan, you're an Eagles fan. If you're a Sixers fan, you're a Sixers fan. Bottom line. I mean, look, I know there's some people out there, like I said, the one YouTuber, Mr. Dugas, he's a Heat fan for his NBA team and an Eagles fan for the NFL, which I get that. You can have you could have someone that may be a Yankees fan as their baseball team and maybe a fan of, say, the Baltimore Ravens as their NFL team. I get that. That's possible, but because that's two different sports. So yeah, like to me, yeah, you can be a fan of a certain player, like I said. I know Mitch said back in the day he was an Adrian Peterson fan before he bore all of his legal issues. So yeah, you can certainly be a fan of a player, but to me, that's as far as it goes. You can be a fan of their game, wish them success as individual success, but if they're not on your team, you're not jumping on the bandwagon at all. And that's how I see that right there. It's like, I don't see how you could ever be like, let's go Sixers 1 minute, and then like later that night be all of a sudden, oh, let's go Thunder. Like that, I don't see how that's doable. It's like, okay, there may be a certain player you're a fan of, like in SGA, you may wish him success, but you're just a fan of that player's game. That's all. Your team's still your team no matter what. So, really, that's all I got to say. I just wanted to come on here quickly, talk with you guys a little bit. So, Chad, Little G, everyone that stopped by, thanks for stopping by. Hope you have a great rest of your Saturday. For those that tune into the Sunday morning show, I won't be on it tomorrow, so unfortunately, I won't be on there. I may be back sometime, maybe later tomorrow. Monday, might drop a YouTube short or two. So, with that being said, thanks for tuning in. Have a great rest of your day, and until next time, Nicky Steve signing off. Peace.